Okay, good evening. It's May 6th, 2026. This is a public meeting of the Portland Committee on Community Engaged Policing, Community Engagement Subcommittee. And this is the first meeting of this rebooted subcommittee. So thank you to our members who are here tonight. So yeah, I can start with a roll call of the members of this subcommittee. So please just say here and we'll get to introductions after that. Leslie.
Here.
Tia. Absent. Pastor Weisner.
Here.
Vanessa.
Here.
And Fossica.
Here.
Okay. All right, and then moving right into introductions. So any PCCEP members here, including non-members of the subcommittee, please feel free to introduce yourselves. And Leslie, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I can kick it off. Leslie Martinez, Community Engagement Co-Chair. My pronouns are she, her, and PCCEP member for like 4 years now, almost 4 years. I will hand it off to Fossica.
Good evening. My name is Fossica. I use she, her pronouns, PCCEP member, and I've been part of PCCEP since January. And I'll pass it off to Vanessa.
Thank you. Vanessa Perry, she, her pronouns. I'm a PCCEP member and I also joined PCCEP in January. I'll pass it to you, Pastor Weisner. Oh, you're muted.
Okay, there we go. Pastor Weisner, PCCEP member. Use he, him, and soul brother. I don't know what else to pass it on to you, Kip.
I just want to mirror that, but Kip Silverman, he, him pronouns, newly co-chair of the full committee, and I forget how long I've been here, 3.5 years. Does that sound right? Something like that. And I can't see who else is on because I'm on my mobile, so I'll let whoever else is out there pick.
I think that's PCCEP.
Yeah. So now city staff, monitor folks, I think that's all of us in the meeting. We can introduce ourselves. So I'm Dory Grabinski, PCCEP Program Manager. And just jump in.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Iman Gassemi. I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator, and I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Liz Taylor, PCCEP Program Coordinator.
And Antoinette from the monitors here with us as well. Antoinette, if you...
Hi, Antoinette, Associate Monitor. I'm off the screen because my eyes are swollen. I look like somebody somewhere else, but I love your background, Iman. Happy Wednesday, peace. I'm looking at everybody's backgrounds. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Okay, so moving right along. Community agreements. Pastor Weisner, would you like to read these?
I will be happy to. The community agreement lists respectfully to those who are intended to listen actively and respectfully, share airtime, be present and open to new information and perspective, assume positive intent and respect each other and respect the group as well, please. Speak your own truth, communicate directly, honestly, and respectfully, please. Ask clarifying questions to clarify, please. And call out bias and be okay with umbilical. You know that word. Get tossed into my
ambiguity. Yep.
Ambiguity. Yes.
Thanks, Pastor Weisner.
Happily.
Okay, so an overview of today's meeting. It is an appropriate crowd for a mostly internal discussion about the inner workings of setting up this new community engagement subcommittee. So we are just going to talk mostly about that. We'll start off with a little bit of an overview of a community engagement plan, which is kind of a project that this committee will be tasked with, and then pretty much just get into the details of workflow and operations. Yeah, so start with a couple updates here.
Quick question on that first question, Dory.
Yeah.
Will there be handouts or anything that we may be receiving to keep log of this community engagement plan framework?
Most of the work I know you've been having some Outlook issues. So if you are having trouble opening the links I sent, let's connect after this. But most of the development of that plan, I think, will happen via SharePoint, which is kind of like an online document sharing platform that we use. So we'll send that to you guys for your input, and we can work on that kind of offline together.
Perfect. Thank you.
But we'll get to that. Okay, so starting with updates. All right, so I'm just going to continue to share word about our schedule. In the last meeting, PCEP members discussed their preferred meeting cadence. So beginning in June, we will start to reflect that a little better. But for the end of May, we do have our steering committee meeting scheduled for May 27th, the last meeting, or the last Wednesday of the month. And that'll be hybrid at the Portland building. And then in June, we will have the full committee meeting on the first Wednesday of the month, and the policy and reform subcommittee meeting on the last Wednesday of the month. Community engagement meeting, that's kind of something we'll discuss tonight, is what that should look like. So that is TBD. Moving on. Okay, and then just also sharing an update that Mark Smith notified us that the independent monitor town hall for the new compliance report will likely happen sometime the last week of May as well. We did let them know about the conflict with the steering committee meeting, so hopefully we don't have a conflict. I also requested the opportunity to co-host, and it looks like they have declined that offer, so it will be hosted independently of PCEP, just because I know PCEP members had been wondering about that. Yeah, and then the draft compliance report is available for review. Yes. Any questions on that?
I have, I got lost in the decline for co-hosting.
Question? Do you have a question?
Yes. So the question is, the request from PCEP was to co-host like previously when we used to do, and
Yes.
it was declined,
Yes.
and reason was.
I am not sure. I think that would be a good question for you all to ask the monitor team. I simply relayed your request to co-host, and it was declined. So I don't have any more information than that.
Antoinette, would you have any background on it?
Look, I think in the spirit of not having a conflict or being, what's the word, neutral? I almost said neutered. I'm out of it.
Well, look, AT, I understand because the way
yeah.
that you described that, and I don't want to kind of belittle where you are because it's a lot more questions, and maybe we as a committee or a group can put it in writing and send it thought again for the explanation, just so that we'd be respectful to you.
I thank you. I think I'm going to mute now because I tend to be.
Okay, well, it sounds like Antoinette maybe is not the right person to ask. We might, I might suggest sending an email to Mark P. Smith, who is the lead monitor, who was the one who responded to my email, and he might have more insight.
Thank you. And I don't know if that is a interest to the group or the committee group team. It would. I have that feeling. Is there anyone else that may have a thought on that or may not make a difference?
I think that would be appropriate. Yeah, and see what we find. And I think it would be good if you or Kip are the ones to make that communication as the co-chairs of the full committee on behalf of the committee.
Due diligent, and we will make sure I see Kip put a thumbs up on that. Thank you.
And then because this is touching on community engagement, I think if you both are comfortable with it, copying me and Tia, so that if there is a path forward for us to work together, we can jump on right away without you having to figure out how to listen.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Great.
totally agree.
Good call. Great. Okay, so Kip and Pastor Reisner, we will wait for you to act on that and copy staff and the community engagement chairs.
Okay, Kip, we'll get together. Probably connect sometime in your convenient. Just give me a call, Kip, if you have my number. If not, I'll put it in the chat or direct email.
Yeah, message me. I'm not sure I have it, and yeah, let's talk and draft something and get something out quickly, since going to be the end of May. So
yeah, I would recommend just a quick note tomorrow, if possible, or tonight.
Well, okay, definitely after.
Super quick, just asking the question, yeah, or a request to speak would probably also be good.
Yeah,
Thank
the sooner the better on that, for sure.
Great, thank you. All right, moving on. Okay, so I'm gonna put Iman on the spot here, but I think this might be a good standing agenda item as we're kind of building out the bones of this thing. So you all received an email from Iman earlier today, and I will also, I think, yeah. So I will pass it to Iman. Maybe Iman, if you could speak to both the email and what you plan to share out, and then also just a recap of anything you want to share in the meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you all. Again, I hope you all were able to receive that email here, and I kind of want to make this a bi-weekly thing to be able to send to you all, just so you can have a better idea of what I'm doing out in the community. You know, one of the biggest things, as I was kind of mentioning in the email, was just kind of getting my face out there as much as I can, whether it be resource fairs or anything. And you know, thankfully we're going towards summertime, so there's a lot more just positive events that are happening. So and I hope you all had the option, and I'll be attaching like photos and videos to these things as well. You know, I'm a very visual person, so for me, I want to be able to show that to you all as well. So, and that's why I wanted to include, especially in this most recent last few weeks, I wanted to show you all, you know, especially what's kind of been happening. A big part of that was I spoke with a gentleman named Alex from Portland, from the Dream Plaza. That was that little skateboarding thing over there. That area, when he was explaining to me, used to be like a drug haven over there. And then he started building that, and yeah, so that's where they're at right now, and they've done a fantastic job. And they'll be doing block parties throughout the summer, and all that great stuff. So, and you know, I told him the work that we do over here for PCCEP, and so he was very intrigued by that, and he very much was curious of wanting to do something together. So I just told him, and as like I mentioned in that email, is that he's going to be working on a proposal that he's going to send to us. So then I will be able to share with you all and all that. And if any of you all would love to go on a field trip or anything like that to any of these places, please let me know, and I would love for you all to join, just so you can to kind of visualize that. Another big conversation that I had was during Portland's National Youth Violence Prevention Week. Mayor Wilson made a proclamation, and he made a message as well for it. And the kickoff was at McDaniel High School, beautiful looking high school. And so that's where I engaged with an organization called Talk a Mile. And so I was able to speak with Justin. I knew Justin from my time in Gresham. And so he was very intrigued with the work that we do, and he really wants to get something involved. So where, for example, you know, the idea of something like that could look like where committee members can be walk side by side with youth, and you could kind of see through that video of my walk with Oscar of what that would look like, right? So that's where you can kind of have the discussion, and then where you can go back into the main classroom where you can even have a further discussion about just more deeper in depth. Obviously, these are things we could talk about, but I mentioned that to him. He very much was intrigued by that and wanted to do something. And then my guy Ronnie at PPS was super excited to hear that I'm at Portland, and he wants to do something. So they mentioned doing something in the early fall when the kids go back to school, and starting at Jefferson High School. Jeff does a really great job. McDaniel High School was the kickoff event, Barb. And then to do it at Jefferson High School, just because they have a very good connection with Jefferson High School. And then at the same time, Justin will be reaching out to his youth connects to let them know about our open position for committee members as well, so he can be able to get that. So I'll be working a little bit more on that. I also went. I think it was the day afterwards. There was a lot of things been happening. I went to a cleanup event, and it was in Midway, off 122nd and 113th in Division. I was able to meet a wonderful resident there, and we were able to have a conversation. She really loved, again, the work that we were doing, and I told her I would love to be connected with the neighborhoods here. And so she actually got me connected with the president of the Hazelwood Neighborhood Association. So I can be able to be involved with that as well. So I was really excited, and at the same time, we were able to clean up quite a bit of trash along Division Street as well. So it was definitely nice to kind of give back to the community at the same time to make a little bit of connections and network as well. And then to talk about networking, there was a really big event, and I really hope that, especially with this group here, I know that the Community Services Network will have multiple of these. And I briefly mentioned this a few days ago, but there was over 90 organizations at this event. It was incredible, really. And it was from 1 to 4, and I didn't have enough time to be able. There was at least a dozen organizations where I didn't have enough time to be able to connect with. There were a lot of mental health organizations there, a lot of people there. So it was just a great way to be able to connect with folks. And like I was telling Dory, it also allowed me to kind of play around with the elevator pitch a little bit, right? So you're like, okay, let me use it a little bit with this folks, because their focus is on mental health, but then this focuses on youth. Let's try it a little bit on this one, and then this focuses on immigrants and refugees. Let's try it on a little bit of this one. So anyway, it was just a really great one. And then while I was there, I was able to meet in person, Layla Haju. And so we had a really great conversation. And so she was super excited to see me. And so while she was there, she got me, what's it called? She got me introduced to the executive director of the Community Services Network. And so, which was a really great connection. I just reached out. And so she just got back to me, and we're gonna have lunch here sometime next week, just to talk about uh, collabs and everything else, and just so she could learn a little bit more about the work that we're doing, and especially here with the subcommittee and all that. So again, more information to come, especially here in the coming weeks. So that's a bit about my updates right now. Like I said, I'm still continuing doing that. This Friday, May is National Mental Health Month, and so there's a lot of mental health focus events. Like I said, Friday there is a mental health fair, and it's actually held by. I actually led that event last year, so we passed it off to one of the partners in Gresham. So there's 45 community partners that are going to be there. That's focused on East Portland area or East Multnomah County. So I think it'll be a really great opportunity to be able to network with them and talk with them as well, and still being able to get that face out there. And at the same time, just doing more digging to see what other resource fairs are available. I know the Hazelwood has a resource fair coming up. Dawson's Park has a monthly one. I was at that one this week. That was just a great way to connect. I connected with PYC while I was there. So yeah, I don't know if there's anything else I missed or anything else you would want me to include, Dory.
No, I think that gives a good taste of kind of the variety of things Iman's been up to. And the main goal right now being just to be a presence in community and start building trust with people so they'll engage with us in the future. I don't know if any members had any questions for Iman about anything at this moment.
I do. So Iman, one of the things that I would really love is for you to kind of like, well, I think we've talked about this, like opening up the opportunity for additional PCEP members to attend.
Mhm.
Is there a way, I have some ideas, but like, you know, we have the Teams chat going where you can like let us know about upcoming events and things like that. I think like as much as possible, saying I'm going to be at this event, you know, who can come with me? That would be a great way to like start getting us embedded in these like community events and kind of getting used to the idea. And like, you know, sometimes we might not be available, but some folks might be available.
Yeah, you know, Leslie, I think that's a great question. I'll be honest with you. I was thinking of you all when I was at that networking event.
Mhm.
First of all, one, I didn't know how big it was going to be, you know, because I've been to these, but it was like I said, it was really big. So it definitely made me think of you all, where I was like, all right, that would have been really great. Where you could be like, all right, Leslie, you go tables 1 through 30. I'll take 31 through 60, and then blah blah. You know, so then we can reconvene and talk about what we learned, and you know, you can really get in depth with those conversations. But one of the things I can do is I've worked with Dory and Liz on creating a calendar. And so, and what I can do is I can share that calendar with you and with everybody there. And so then you all can just keep track of it. So then you can kind of see what is happening with community events, and how you can kind of be involved regarding that. Yeah.
Yeah, Leslie, I think one thing I've been thinking about is so in the same way that Iman's gonna start sending out like a bi-weekly digest of like what he did, like kind of like who he connected with and stuff. I think in that same email, maybe, and some of this, you know, we're just gonna have to develop it and see how it works, but maybe like he could have another section in the email that's like, here's what I'm planning in the
Okay.
next couple of weeks. Because I think we have the calendar and that's going to be good, but I know that with, you know, your volunteer schedules and everything, communicating those opportunities as many ways as possible is going to be the key, and also with notice.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's going to be because like seeing the list is a lot different and maybe less urgent than like having the ask made directly to us of, hey, who can attend, or I'm going to need some support, or this is a big event that's important. So I think having that, keeping that going as much as possible. And then in the calendar that you have, I'm curious to see if we can also embed that into the SharePoint that we're building, because it could be just a simple, so like we can talk about like the technical aspect of that in like a, you know, check-in meeting or something like that.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Pastor Weisner, I saw your hand up.
Thank you very much. And Leslie, help the old man stay in the content of where we are here. I had a few questions. Great Iman report. Great. That's a lot of work out there you're doing and touching bases with the different places that you're visiting and things. I do have a question. Is there any feedback on those groups? It sounds like youth, and their encounter and perception of how they engage and police are engaging with them, so that there is a little informative more the how when we walk in, the perception of where we are coming in for is to always be able to say issues and concerns and accountability is what we are about. And I don't know if that has been in the frame, Leslie. Maybe are we too early in areas of where we're trying to establish, or am I thinking as an old PCEP guy?
No, I don't think you're like, I don't think we've established that yet, and that's, I think, one of the things that we want to establish as we formulate our community engagement strategy. Making sure that we have like clear goals, and, you know, like it's not just community engagement for the sake of community engagement. You know, that's part of it. We want to make sure we're out there, but we also want to make sure that we're you know, doing something with that community engagement that is like purposeful and and we're getting as much of it to help, you know, our mission and our goal as possible.
100%. And Pastor Weisner, I think that is the perfect question to ask. And I think that, as Leslie said, once bringing the subcommittee and the PCEP members into that is really what's going to help us start engaging with that substance. A big part of Iman's role also is going to be, because as you know, like if there isn't trust and there aren't relationships, it's nearly impossible to actually do engagement and get input on the questions that we have and the concerns we have and that kind of thing. So a big part of his role is just going to be being that presence and connecting, and that is a huge benefit of having staff. And then I think you all will be coming into that equation and bringing in those content pieces.
And that's a perfect thought of how I'm thinking, Iman, in areas of like passing the torch, so to say, when we're there. And the reason I'm looking at that is because each one of those ethnic groups are young people groups. There is a encounter and a perception of what we don't know that they're encountering and whether it's something that they have had their family members or others and their friends in the school and other things that we think the issues are strong enough if they're encountering it amongst their peers, amongst their school or wherever in the families that this table offers a place of coming in and even engaging, as you're saying, to bring them through or sitting at the table to have their voices heard. But again, I recognize that we're framing so far right now. But again, I do know that's a lot of work you've done, and congratulations on that big, huge step there.
Thank you. Just to answer your question as well, there was nobody like I've spoken with quite a few people over the last few weeks, from youth to older adults, and especially on the youth side, I haven't had a youth to my face or in the vicinity being like uh FTP or anything like that. It's for them, it was there was when I spoke to Ronnie, we did notice, I observed it as well, where there were youth who came in, especially for the event that was going to be for the National Youth Violence Prevention Week. It was at the theater, whatever, inside McDaniel. And they had a former Green Bay Packers running back there who's from the area, and they had a few others. And so it was like they had a student performance. It was a cool vibe. But then they also had some like police officers who were there, and there were youth who walked in, and then once they saw the cops, they're just like, I'm out of here. They left. So they were definitely not, didn't want to kind of be around that. And then when we went to the track afterwards, which was like, I don't know, 45 minutes later, there was, I would say 14 youth, 15, 16 youth who were able to come out onto the track. I walked with two young ladies, and we were able to talk. They didn't give me any like, oh, FTP or anything like that, but they definitely did show their dislike for that. If we had more time, because we started the walk late because the program started late as well, that we would have had more time to be able to talk. I think the good thing about like that Talk a Mile program is that you're walking and talking, so you're really building that trust. Like that first lap is just like, hey, who are you? You're really getting to know the person, and then that second lap, they ask you a question of like why you got into this work that you're doing, and then the third lap, you start talking about them and safety and all that, and then the fourth lap, you talk about the future. So normally, sometimes if you have more time, you can do a fifth lap, a sixth lap, and then that's when you really get into the nitty-gritty and you get to some really in-depth conversations about how, especially the young people, about how they feel. I spoke with the violence prevention coordinator Ronnie with PPS afterwards. We had, like I said, it was a great, nothing but love between us, and so that's when he kind of mentioned to me, it's like there's a lot of kids. Again, this is secondhand verbiage, being like a lot of kids that we work with that have been impacted by police that very much feel FTP, and we can definitely get them out to these events and all that. And so I kind of mentioned our, we from what I've heard is that we hear a wide range of of experiences, of feelings at these events, and that's really what these events are kind of for, is to kind of hear about everybody's experience, because everybody's experience is different, and so we're just trying to elevate that voice. So that's where I'm at right now. Like I said, I will continue to update that, as you know, obviously some conversations will be different than others as we go along, and all that, but that's where I'm at right now over the last few weeks and what I've heard from the community.
I'm parking.
Yeah, no, that's
Stuff
awesome.
was great.
But I do have
Yeah.
to mention, when I do mention that, like the work that, you know, like we have 13 members who are not part of PPB, not part of the city, you know, and then they make recommendations. And then, you know, when I mention like, oh, you know, these recommendations go to the mayor and the chief, it definitely gets their eyebrows up and more like, oh, okay, now that's very intriguing type of a thing. I don't tell them like, the whole, oh, they have to make it within 60 days. I'm like, yeah, they have to respond within a couple weeks, and all that. So just, I don't need to get to the nitty-gritty with a lot of these type of things when you're speaking with folks. So you just kind of break it down like that, and then that's when they're really intrigued. Like I said, that community service network, there was at least 13, 14 individuals where I thought like, okay, we can definitely overlap with the work that you're doing and the work that we're doing. With the first one being with 4D recovery, like I told Dory, I was able to meet with one of my contacts when I was in Gresham, and so I hadn't spoken with her for a few months. And so it was just nice that she was right there, and so she got super stoked. And I'm actually meeting with her next week just to reintroduce and just talk about PCEP and all that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Iman, for that report. I think we are, yeah, to stay on time, we should probably move on to the next topic on the agenda. But I think this is all really, really good framing and a perfect handoff for that.
Thanks, Leslie. Yep, let's jump right into that. So getting into kind of the objectives for this meeting, go on to the next slide. I think I have something here. Okay, so one of the first, I'm assigning an administrative, well, it's sort of a project to this subcommittee to get you all started, which is to develop a community engagement plan. And a big part of that is because those of you who have been on for a little while will understand this. We really need to make sure we're creating some institutional memory around all of the hard work that this subcommittee is about to do to, you know, be operational. And then also a document that will provide you some structure as you're thinking about like the year and what the work will look like, and just something to be accountable to. So yeah, so what I want to do is there a next slide here too? Okay, so these are suggestions, but what I would like to do is take a look at an outline I've created for this community engagement plan. And these are some ideas I have about things that it could or should cover. But some key things being, you know, the role of the subcommittee, how the subcommittee will work, what your deliverables are, and how that works with the rest of the committee. So I'm going to share. Let's see.
Dory, on that, I'm not sure we're at the point where we could share the document yet. I think we need to, I think there's a great like outline that we can, I think, share amongst ourselves. It's really a skeleton. I think what I wanted to do today was more talk about these points, take notes, and then take that back into the document and populate that.
I completely agree. I think just for the benefit of having a visual for folks, I was going to share that out in this meeting briefly and then circle back to some of the discussion points for this meeting.
Okay, I just don't want to confuse folks thinking that that's kind of what we have to stick to.
No. No, it's not. I'll just go ahead and kind of, okay, so I think like a lot of the conversations we're going to have in this meeting and ongoing are about what the work of this subcommittee should look like. So this is just a draft that I created, but that you all will actually create. And so any of this can be changed. But I just identified some possible headers. And for instance, we're about to kind of discuss this stuff here in this meeting. So the goal would be to have some consensus around what these things look like and then fill them into a document that is sort of an internal plan for you all that will be that can also be shared with future members, if that kind of makes sense. Okay. All right. So Leslie, I'll hand it to you to kind of lead on these discussion points for the rest of the meeting. You can get the slides back.
Sounds good. Yeah, so as this is a new committee that we're trying to stand up, and we have Iman and everything, you know, we have everything in place really to help do some really impactful community engagement work. So today's meeting, we're just kind of brainstorm around how we want to structure this committee. One of the things that we really probably want to identify is that structured cadence for our meetings and like potentially what that will look like. How things to think about is like, when do we want to go into the community? When do we want to have like virtual meetings? And then also how the community engagement that we're doing, like ideas around how that is going to inform like the larger work that PCCEP does within the steering committee and the policy committee and all of that. And then also, you know, we want to talk about the thing that I'm missing, I think, is like the types of events that we want to engage in, and like communities and things like that. So yeah, basically just kind of like a brainstorm meeting. We'll start, if we can go to the next slide, with how we want to operate this subcommittee. Going on to the next slide, yes, thank you. The standing Wednesdays meetings, like what Wednesdays would that be? What options do we want to consider for these types of, for our community engagement committee meetings? How often do we want to be in the community versus how often do we want to be in like this virtual environment? So yeah, I think we can kind of start there around the monthly meeting structure, and then maybe talk about the other stuff, so we don't get like, we don't talk about everything all at once. So thoughts from folks.
So when it comes to the idea of your standing Wednesday meetings, do people have ideas about what that should look like? Your goals for that time?
Okay, so the first Wednesday of the month is the full committee meeting.
Right.
And remind me what the other Wednesdays look like.
The last Wednesday of the month will be policy and reform. And then I guess just for awareness, the second Wednesday of the month is typically when the CBPA meetings happen. And the third Wednesdays of the month are evening city council meetings. So may or may not be relevant to kind of, you know, especially depending on how the subcommittee is working. But, you know, just so you know that those are the conflicts, and we will conflict. It just is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And the fourth, as you said, the full committee, is that right?
Correct. Yes.
I thought the full committee is the first.
Oh, sorry. First is full committee. Fourth is policy and reform.
Mm-hmm.
You could get me to agree with anything right now.
I was just looking at my calendar. On the 27th, I have a full committee. I didn't know. Or did that start June?
So, yeah. And I think one of the reasons that we want to stick to Wednesdays Dory mentioned this last time, is because that's the time commitment that the members of the overall larger committee agreed to. So we don't want to deviate from Wednesday too much, but knowing that we have those like pretty much conflicts that we can't avoid, what makes the most sense for this committee, because we do want to have a meeting at least once a month that the public can attend.
I agree.
I mean, so it sounds like it's second or third Wednesday then?
Correct.
Yeah, like I guess who would we be okay with conflicting, knowing that we have a very similar audience? Yeah, and I mean, I guess across both committees, the CBPA and the city council.
The city council, and what other one was that? The CBA?
CBPA.
CBPA.
And that is the
new IPR. You know CBPA.
IPR. Yes, IPR.
Well, the new board. The new board.
The PAC, is that right?
Well, basically.
Okay. All these acronyms city gives.
The thing the PAC created. Yeah.
Personally, I will be trying at the beginning of where the accountability board is being put together. I will be trying to be involved as much as I can there from my other obligations. So that's hard for me on that those nights there.
Yeah.
And if that's the only time that they meet and city council has their other meeting during the day, granted that might not work for some of us, but it could work for others, then I think it might make more sense to conflict with city council.
I agree. I'm a thumbs up on that, that recommendation.
I don't, yeah. And that would be the third Wednesday of the month, right?
Correct.
Dory, where I'm drawing a blank, evening sessions for council, is it a like safety? What does the evening council usually do?
Full council. So I will say, to Vanessa's point, it is 1 out of 4 to 5, I guess, council meetings of the month, and would not necessarily have anything related to police or public safety. It could, whereas the CBPA meetings will always be a conflict when it comes to this world of policing, oversight, accountability, etc. policy.
I agree. I think that makes the most sense. Okay. And sometimes we might not even conflict because, well, yeah, depending on the schedule. So I'm looking at some. I'm not sure if I'm being hopeful, but like there's some months that have 5 Wednesdays. So like depending on how that lands, we can ahead of time pivot to like the 4th Wednesday within that one, since the last Wednesday will be taken up by the Policy and Reform Subcommittee.
I misspoke earlier. It's the 4th Wednesday for this reason of there sometimes being 5 Wednesdays. It will always be the 4th Wednesday that is Policy and Reform.
Not the last Wednesday. Okay, right. I see.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So never mind.
Yeah. But I mean, look, it's not, it's not a perfect, we're not going to find a perfect solution. I think that it makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So with that established, we'll take the Community Engagement Subcommittee will take the 3rd Wednesday of every month as our standard meeting time, at least. What that looks like could vary. We've talked about going out in the community instead of having the community come to us through Zoom. but at least like the time and dates are established. So with that format option, what do we like? What does the full committee think in terms of like what what it looks like being out in the community? What are if we're not in the community? Let's start with like if we're not in the community, because I think that's more concrete potentially. What is like potentially a standard community engagement subcommittee meeting look like? In the past, so we have some format options or things that we've done in the past. We've offered time for community members and community organizations to come in and talk about, specific issues that they have. We've also, used this time to debrief on community events and come up with ideas. It could look like none of that. So what do folks think like a standard, like, because that will be our most common meeting structure should look like, or should include, I guess.
Will that include members like what Barb and Rochelle and frameworks of what it is that we may be structuring from what we have engaged in the community with? How will the engagement work there with the community in that meeting? Yeah,
I mean, I think it's kind of going to be similar to like our other meetings where we potentially, like, it's not going to be a town hall every meeting, potentially, unless we decide that we do want to make it a town hall every meeting. But I think, we'll still have time reserved at the end for community input like we do. That'll be, except for those things, I guess, because we will have like the 10 to 15 minutes allocated at the end of the meetings for community input. I'm talking about the rest of the meeting.
Yes, and I was looking at the part of what, depending on the subject or content of that, is how I was trying to.
Leslie, I think that it might, I think it might make sense to think about, so sort of in tandem, I think part of what we're doing here is bringing together genuinely years of discussion about what this work should look like. And it's pretty resounding that I think members, many iterations of this group have agreed that for the most part, the community engagement PCCEP is lacking, will probably not happen in these Zoom meetings. However, I think, so that's why we're kind of talking about like, okay, what is regular, like what would like a regular Wednesday thing out in community look like for this subcommittee? However, that also needs to be balanced with some working meetings, probably in this Zoom format, where you would be taking, and this gets into the conversation about deliverables as well, where you would be synthesizing what you have heard and creating some sort of deliverable so it can be used by the rest of the committee. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. That's where I was thinking, because I'm trying to follow along in that where you outlined, because what we're doing out there, bringing in that and then putting it together, and then community having heard what we've heard, shaping that. I was agreeing with you again, Dory, on how I was thinking.
But I guess we should discuss if that is the
consensus.
Yeah, that's my summary of kind of what's been discussed at multiple retreats over several years at this point. But we should kind of work that out, I think. And if that is the case, the questions to resolve would be, number one, what does that in community Wednesday time look like? And number two, what is the frequency of either type? Like, would it be every other month, and then like the next month you have a meeting like this and you synthesize that event? Would you, or drop-in meeting or whatever?
Yeah.
Would it be like 2 and 1? Yeah. So how to organize that, Vanessa?
And so are we reporting for, do we have a slot on the full committee meeting where each subcommittee reports what they're doing?
Yes.
Okay, so we can communicate with the wider community in that way as well. Okay, cool. Thanks for clarifying.
Yes. Yeah. Mhm.
Question in the areas of the content of what it looks like and information that brings back, would also that be an opportunity to look at what input of the content of what we've heard, bringing in where we're educating directives, speakers to talk more broadly, or am I out of the box again, thinking old school?
No, I think we're kind of thinking about all of that. Like, what does that look like? Like, we can say, like, we definitely want to have that structure.
And that's how I'm thinking along this way too. And I want to go on mute because everybody else is not talking. So I'm so far following, I think. So I'm gonna hear everybody else's thoughts.
Okay. So, I mean, I think one of the things that's really clear to me is that I think if we're talking about, you know, one meeting at like every month, that really only gives us like what, 8 more meetings for the rest of the year. So I think a lot of the work that we do has to be done, in my opinion, and correct me if I'm wrong, outside of these like meetings. And that's where, like, you know, the stuff that Iman does, us going out into the community as well. So I like the idea of having, like, not to put a lot of work on all of us and stuff like that, you know, because we are all volunteers, but that's where I see a lot of the real community engagement work happening. And then these meetings really being more of us in, like, you know, having a public forum to discuss potentially what we've heard, having some updates for the community, input on, like, you know, things and things like that. So that's how I'm like thinking about it. But I guess, like, what does that look like? And I guess, like, are other folks feeling the same way about that?
Again, if I speaking again, I like the idea of where that engaging in community, because it's the people and relationships that we know, and people are going to be comfortable in those areas of community that we're attending those events at, and we're just the people that, as Iman was saying, the example around the second lap, enough people are relating to what it is, and we're engaging, having that conversation, builds that relationship to be able to dig more into where it looks like me, it talks like me, and I think that's interesting to be more like what I'm interested in, as sharing it, and then building that information pack of information, whether it's the mental health or whether it's the lack of engaging or what they trust in policing. I think for me, as going into from people previously, like uh, the former or the Dawson Park president, Keith Wilson, when I'm speaking in that Dawson Park area, I'm there and people are talking to me. And there I'm able to extract more of what it is that we're doing for that relationship building, to say, okay, here's our engaging piece where that we can come back and share that for what we haven't found out, and then build on that. That's how I'm hearing and thinking too, in coming back and building out of those topics.
Yeah. So I know that we took the slides down, but I think slide 17 would actually, maybe keeping that up would be good, if we can get those slides back up too, because I think we're starting to talk in circles a little bit without, in a good way. I think we're all aligned. But Vanessa, where are you gonna? Oh, the next slide. Sorry.
Yeah, totally agree on using our meetings to engage with community. I think that's a lot more valuable. That's our whole point, right? But I would like to suggest, and we can do this in our meeting now, or we can do this offline, figuring out some type of a cadence or norms for what our offline work is going to look like. So it's not just like, hey, here's this piece of work. Can you, everyone take a look at it and get back to me, right?
Mhm.
Rather being like, hey, it's Monday. Here's some tasks that we have ahead of us. Can everybody look at this by Thursday or whatever, right? So it's not just this ongoing cascade of work. And I know that it would be really helpful for people to plan their week and their workload around it.
Yeah.
I like that. So just because I'm a little confused actually if everyone is saying the same thing or not, is there consensus that for the standing Wednesday meetings, for the most part, the subcommittee members would like to, and whatever it looks like, we haven't gotten there yet, but would like to do something in community with community members, organizations, whatever. Okay.
Okay, this makes it, because I was reading it more as like, for the most part, the standing meeting is synthesizing work. But maybe I'm misunderstanding.
I thought I
Because-
heard you say that. I think
Yeah.
what I'm hearing Vanessa and Pastor Weisner, and would love to hear from Fosika as well. But what I'm hearing from some of the subcommittee members is actually the opposite.
Okay.
And I
I
think
heard
that's
the same thing. Sorry.
Well, go ahead, Fosika. I'd love to hear from you.
No, I thought I was hearing like the same thing, to use like the Wednesday meetings to work on like synthesizing what we gathered from the community members, and then like talk about it, discuss about it, and like take next steps. And then the community events would be outside the Wednesday meeting hours, is what
Okay.
I thought everybody was saying.
So we're at 50-50. But I guess, yeah, like the only reason I don't necessarily like, so I would love to do what you and what Pastor and Vanessa are discussing, but the only reason I'm not necessarily seeing it that way right now is because the way that I'm thinking about, or that I've heard engaging with community, is like engaging with them where they are. And I don't know that community events will happen regularly enough on Wednesday, or like, I mean, I guess the other way would be like, we have these types of meetings in those spaces, but that kind of defeats the purpose if we're just going to kind of like use their space to have our content. So that's where that's the only reason I'm not seeing it that same way. Otherwise, but like if we're talking about like us quarterly hosting an event and bringing community in or something like that, that would be different. But yeah.
I think maybe we are having a visioning problem here, where we're both talking about trying to do something new and recognizing the limitations of our format. And so maybe it's the idea, it's that we're having a hard time imagining what that regular time would look like. And maybe we should have started there. But Iman, do you want to speak a little bit about, like, we've had discussions about what like a regular monthly event could look like for us, modeled after stuff that other types of organizations are doing. Do you want to kind of contribute a little bit as far as what we've discussed in that regard?
Yeah, we've kind of discussed about having, whether they be quarterly meetings or events or monthly, just depending on what we talk about, and having different themes regarding these events. And so whether they can be a mental health theme, or make it be a youth theme, or whatever it is that we can be able to oh, I'm sorry. So one of the things that we were, I've spoken with Dory about this, and one of the things, the feedback I'm getting from the community is that they really, I've told them I don't want to do the same old, same old. And from what I hear back from the community is that's also what they agree with, is that so I've spoken with a few members and especially youth, and what really got me thinking was that young man who was at McDaniel who was performing that song, and the song wasn't just a song; it was a song focused on youth violence prevention. So I was like, all right, well, then it got me thinking, of like, can we do like a PCEP open mic where people maybe that they feel uncomfortable being able to talk, but they feel very comfortable being able to do a poetry or to sing a song about it or to do something where to them that's their comfort level. So I'm just trying to think outside the box of where we can be able to have some creativity about it and then to be able to get that feedback on that. I've thrown the open mic idea to a few people, and they're very much they like that idea, and I've talked this about like to community-based organizations, and so the feedback that I've gotten from them has been very positive. So like obviously I've Dory and I have spoke of like, all right, what do we call it? Do we call it open mic? Do we call it this? Do we call it that? Right? So we it's keeping a lot of the same idea of the work that is already being done, but just branding it a little bit differently that definitely entices people to think about it differently and then to allows them to be able to speak on it. So is that where you were thinking there, Dory? I don't know if there's anything else.
Yeah, I just wanted you to share because I think there are a lot of creative ways we could think about having a standing event. It doesn't necessarily have to be that. But I think we basically all agree that like, just like a town hall or listening session or whatever, it's a little, we it's limiting, right? So being creative and thinking about different ways this could look. Yeah. I just want to share that if it helps generate any more discussion.
I was going to, I see Jorge put a comment in as well. And Leslie, I see it and was going to ask earlier, but you did a great description of how what you saw as well. That was the majority of the time of how we're spending in the community in events and how those things look as far as shaping. I I recognize the challenges are going to be in there too as well, uh, because again, there's uh, I don't see a whole lot of uh, and I'm old and I don't go everywhere. A lot of places, events, schools, and things like they have outings with. Uh, a lot of places that we can come in and just sit down and do an open um, partnership with them and have a meeting and have conversation and a 12-month calendar. But I do think there might be seasonal times where that we're in those places. Um, that's what I was thinking when I heard you speak, to kind of confirm that I agree where that I would love to hear more of how you see that uh, when you're speaking about the way that you describe that engagement there.
So I mean, this is definitely not like fully formed. The what I was thinking, because and maybe I'm misunderstanding what the folks that are talking about being more in community, but I don't think every Wednesday meeting, or even maybe the majority of them will be able to be out in community. Logistically, that to me, I'm not sure, and like that's likely. But so like the way that I was seeing it, and having Iman be attending events, having him letting us know what events we can plug into that are already happening so that we can have those conversations and start engaging with community members in their own environments and building those relationships. And then quarterly we could have an event in whatever that looks like, whether in a community space. I like the creativity of what you're talking about, Iman. we would have to be consistent in order to build an audience for that. But then the majority of the meetings being us like coming together as a committee and saying like, what are we actually going to do with what we're, based on the community engagement plan, what are we actually going to do with the information? What have we learned? What are the issues that we're seeing? And so that's kind of the way that I was looking at it. So that would allow us to have, if we have an event a quarter, so, that is the other, 8 meetings, we would identify topics and like, the work that we actually want to do within those other meetings. But like, I maybe I'm just talking because of the rest of this year, there's only, 8 more meetings. I don't know. I think we can commit to 1 or 2 out in the community events for the rest of the year. Realistically, because we also know how much those.
I do want to just make sure that we're really fully understanding the value that we have with a staff person entirely dedicated to this, because
Yeah.
I understand, we have been limited in the past with the capacity we have for throwing events and that kind of thing. We also haven't really done many small scale events or partnerships or things like that, which are lower barrier. But also, we have a whole staff person who. So I just want to make sure people understand the way we have worked in the past. What we are actively trying to do is change that and take advantage of this new capacity that we have. So I understand the historical context people are bringing into this, but just wanted to mention that.
Okay. I mean, that makes sense. So then I guess if we were to follow the model where we are mostly in the community doing these types of activities for our Standing Wednesday meeting, then the work would happen potentially via email, asynchronously, having, ad hoc meetings. Is that kind of where
what I would
we're
suggest,
thinking?
if that is the route, I would suggest that, of course, as Vanessa suggested, maybe having like a weekly, like, let's contribute to this document. Like, here's the document for like this month or whatever it is, building that into a regular cadence. But then I would also suggest building in a regular meeting like this on Zoom where you visit all of that. And then you have more time and more input to kind of synthesize themes and create those deliverables. And then those would be passed along to policy and reform for kind of further analysis and tracking, like sort of analyzing like relevance to PBB policies, practices, recommendation opportunities. So I guess that in that model, it would be both, where you would still need meetings like this. I don't want to call them internal meetings because they're public, but like, you know what I mean, to synthesize. But maybe just slightly less, just trading off Wednesdays, but slightly, it could be balanced more towards the events, and maybe every 3rd meeting, every 4th meeting, whatever it is.
I'm sold into that. But that means we would have to be diligent in the response time of getting that document that's created to have the report back by the when. Would that be asked of us to be able to put the input and create more, or is that just all done on the Google Doc? Right? We just follow through with that until we get back to our next face meeting for the report.
I think both. I mean, it's the world is your oyster, but both recording the input received in real time after like a monthly event, but then also having meetings like this. I guess what I'm saying, the Wednesday meetings don't have to be all or nothing. You can do both. You can have more like housekeeping meetings like this to synthesize, and you could have events that are more like in partnership with community or creative things or whatever they may be.
And let me say, I'm just writing so that I can keep up because I'm in agreement with everything that we're going with. I'm just making sure that what I want to make sure I'm following along with how we are gonna, how I'm able to be effective at what I'm doing
Yeah.
in this process. So it's
No,
not.
questions are helpful. And this is all brand new, so it makes sense that there's some, back and forth here.
I think we're all being okay with ambiguity.
Yeah.
How okay can we be? That's the PCCEP name of the game.
It's a beautiful thing.
We should do a community agreements power ranking. That's number one for me. Are we
One
any?
thing
Oh, go ahead, Leslie.
Well, I guess like, I hate to throw this wrench in necessarily, but I'm wondering if it would make sense. Like right now we're doing a lot of like community and relationship building. And I feel like those types of things need to be established and ready so that, when we have these community events, they are impactful, fruitful, and attract people. So I'm wondering if like we can set, it sounds like we're in consensus that, and I'm, kind of majority that we want to be in community for our meetings, which I don't anticipate that we're going to have a meeting May 20, right? Like this is our meeting for this month.
Yeah.
So then the next community engagement subcommittee meeting is June 17. Based on the calendar that we just established. So I think we can talk about when we do want to have a community event. I don't think it can be June 17. I'm not sure it can be July. Thinking the soonest that we can have an actual event in the community is August 19. And then we can, if I don't know, I'd rather start more conservative with an event a quarter than commit to an event every other month and set ourselves up to potentially fail. So I would say if it was, and then we can, increase the frequency from there if we find that that's manageable.
Sorry, I'm going to keep playing devil's advocate here. I think starting conservative makes sense. I do want to sort of push back on the framing of this as an event, at least in the sense of like an event that we have thrown in the past. I think broadly, there is acknowledgement from this group that in order to really do community engagement, we need to do a variety of things. And like some of that, we are trying to build in some structure for you all to be able to do that on the Wednesday time that you've committed to. And of course, with all of the supplemental capacity building that Iman is going to do and opportunities, hopefully members will be able to participate in. But I think in the future, I think so we can, I would say like an event per quarter is like closer to the model that we've been doing in the past. And yeah, I just want to like push back on like, we're not talking big events here. We're talking about little things probably.
Okay.
And so with that in mind, by the fall, I would really like to see, and based on, you know, the requests that I have been making for this additional capacity with staff, I think we really need to be demonstrating a little bit more than one event per quarter. So that's what I'll say.
Repeat that again. You would see demonstrating,
I would say where we've been the last several years is we probably average about an event per quarter, maybe slightly less.
right?
I think in order to prove the, you know, to make the case that we've been making over the years that this is very needed capacity, we need to be doing more than that.
More than once
One
every
event per quarter.
Yeah. Yeah.
quarter.
Having
jump in
community
real
I agree with that too.
Yeah.
More than one in a quarter.
and by event, I just mean presence in community that
Mhm.
includes PCEP members.
Yeah.
Of course, Iman is doing his thing. He's doing a lot more. But yeah.
real quick. I mean, the quote unquote events that we've been doing per quarter were not necessarily community engagement events, but generally town halls, listening sessions, and like you said, big events. So I don't know that the community engagement quarterly events uh, replaces the PCEP wide type events. I think there could be space well, there should be space for both, right? That they shouldn't necessarily have to be driven just from community engagement, which gives community engagement more flexibility on what they go out into the environment to do. I'm just thinking from a full committee standpoint on that. But I hear what you're saying. It doesn't have to be a Grant High School type level event, right? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it could be, you know,
A
like it
pizza
could be
party.
like office hours, drop-in time with community. It could be a lot of different kinds of things. But the point is, I guess the point I want to make sure we're clear on is that we acknowledge Wednesdays are the time that you all have committed to being available. And so from my perspective, we need to spend the ideal outcome would be spending at least some of your Wednesday time engaging with community, because it's one thing for Iman to give you his reports and all of this stuff. It's a very different thing for you as a membership to be engaging with communities directly and building those relationships yourselves.
Right. And I guess what I'm saying is like that would happen not necessarily on the Wednesday meeting. And that's another way that Iman is building capacity for us by you know, providing those opportunities for us outside of those Wednesday meetings, because again, community members will not like
I agree.
all be available. Like they will have events outside of that. They will have events Saturdays and Sundays and things like that. And that, you know, that's one way where we are going to be able to connect with them in their own space.
And I agree in that area too. So that event may be a Thursday, Tuesday, Monday, and we do our Wednesday meeting and reports, our gathering. Is that right, Leslie?
Yeah, exactly. And that's where like it's like, okay, the meeting where but like, you know, as I'm thinking about this, like you know, maybe a compromise with like starting smaller or whatever, you know, the way that I'm thinking about like being more conservative so that we can grow and, you know, we're not biting off more than we can chew at the very beginning, is if we could just say, you know, for the meetings that we have remaining, the July 15 meeting will be an in-community meeting in District 1. You know, for the September 16 meeting, the meeting in community will be in District 2 or something like that. And then like the in-between meeting is a Zoom meeting. And the content, the structure maybe stays the same. Because again, like the idea that we will have more of, you know, kind of like what you were talking about, Iman, with like the engagement type events where there's like, you know, the poetry slam or whatever that we're talking about, that is something that I think we can maybe do as a special event, not a Wednesday meeting.
Right.
And it, like, in my opinion.
And I think
But
we agree with that.
looking forward to other thoughts.
I agree. I like that. I'm thinking in District 2, coffee with a cop, for example. That's on. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say Counselor Smith because that's what she does every
And
month.
that's
She
where
does that in East
we are
Portland.
already establishing some relationship and building community, because you have that large base of community there discussing some of those things that we can hear thirdly from, because again, you're hearing from both perspectives. I've attended, and I think I've seen Jorge at the meetings as well. Have you been to one?
I haven't been, but I know her staffers that organize it.
Elijah and all those, yeah. And
Yeah, Elijah
it,
Tully.
it's great what I'm thinking you're saying, Leslie, as far as where we're at in those areas of monthly. And then Wednesday can be around, like you said, not always out, but getting that. And I seen Liz's hand, and I shut up now.
No, that's okay. You guys are having a lot of great discussion, but I kind of feel like you guys are putting yourself inside of a box too much. Like it has to be this. Like I think the steering committee next week is gonna help, or not next week, later this month is gonna help a lot because like once you guys have like a topic, I think it'll be easier to develop. But like, what does this community engagement strategy look around this particular topic? And in the past with these community engagement subcommittees, like there was a lot of just talking in this, and there wasn't a lot of like engaging with the community, or there wasn't a lot of feedback from the community. So I think getting that feedback first is going to be like really important, and then you can get into that workflow. So that's just kind of what I just see this like cycle of, maybe you're trying to fit the square piece into the circle spot, like if that makes sense.
So are we does it sound like then we need to have the steering committee meeting first before we kind of define some of this other stuff? Like that's what like I feel like maybe you're right, Liz, like without an actual thing that we're working on, we're just kind of theorizing what it could look like.
Well, I don't know about that, because we are talking about the model here. So let's say the topic is response times in District 1. The conversation you've had would be equally relevant, discussing the different kinds of options with that topic in mind, where one possibility is primarily relying on Iman and the occasional events that PCEP members are able to attend outside of Wednesdays, and then asking Iman to engage on that topic, and then him and other members who attend coming back to these meetings like this Zoom one right now and talking about what some people got to hear. That's one option that's been discussed. Second option would look more like partnering with I don't know. I can never think of random organizations, but like planning a meeting, not jumping onto a meeting they have, but having a PCEP and X meeting out in District 1 and being like, hey, we want to hear what you think about response times in your neighborhood. And then you all would be there. No real agenda, just be like, hey, we're gonna have food, let's hang out. And then the next month or in 2 months or whatever, you both report on that input like via email and whatever. And then you meet in a month or two via Zoom and say, okay, we're going to recap the community meeting we had in May. And now we're going to recap the community meeting we had in June. And we're going to kind of shore up what we think we heard and what the themes were. So maybe having a topic helps you visual or like think about it in a more concrete way. But you, no matter what the topics are, my
the process would be the same.
Yeah, you could still think of it in either way.
I think that's what I hear everybody been saying. Yes.
Well, we don't need to tonight, but at some point we do need to decide kind of which direction you're leaning in. And it's not all or nothing, I would say, but so we can, start to figure this out.
I think we have identified, like, we don't have more than those two paths. Right? Like the way that you laid them out, Dory, like that is like an either or. We haven't really discussed like a third option for how this could all be structured necessarily, because I think we are aligned that like one of those two would work. It's just a matter of like which we want to pick and go with. There's pros and cons to both. So I think if we can like type up both of those kind of routes, because I don't think we're going to decide tonight, but if in like a post-meeting recap, we can like, nail both of those down, maybe add some like pros and cons potentially to each option. That is something that we can deliberate over the week and maybe not by next meeting, before next meeting, decide how we want to move forward. Because we're missing Tia too, and she's, gonna have an opinion as well.
And definitely.
But I think,
out there.
yeah, but I definitely think we have settled on two paths forward. Both will work. It's just a matter of how we want to move forward.
Yeah, we can definitely type that up for you all to evaluate.
Sounds good. And I think the other thing, like, so we talked a lot about the meeting structure. Do we want to start talking about the deliverables that we think this committee would produce? I think we've touched on it a little bit with like the report to the full committee. Is it like a running document? Like, what, I guess, some additional thoughts around deliverables that this subcommittee could produce to contribute to the work of the larger committee. Vanessa, could you talk a little bit more about that like running document that you proposed?
Yeah, just in thinking about how Iman has been going out in the community, right, and having all of these conversations, talking to all these different groups, just having a way to take all of those qualitative experiences and quantify them so that we have like number of contacts, number of people, agencies, classifying the different populations by different groups. Like this is a youth group, this is a BIPOC group, this is right, so that we have really good data to drive our plan, but also for some of our deliverables too, right? In explaining to people the ways in which we engaged with Portland, and also just for future, if at any point we want to ask for more resources, you need data to do that, so that we have that, just thinking for future opportunities. That's kind of what I had in mind. Can I answer any questions about that?
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And it makes me think, so one of the things we've been talking about, this got started a long time ago, so I don't know how many newer members have been able to see it. This is only accessible to PCEP members, so I will drop it in the chat, but just know for the community members, only the PCEP folks will be able to open it. The community, like, it needs a lot of cleaning up, and that's one of the things Iman is going to be working on. But the community organization list, and these are things that we need to clean up, but like this could be a foundation, I guess, for what you're kind of talking about. Let me drop it in the chat. Oops, come on. Okay. And it should be accessible with your City of Portland email. But yeah, like tightening up our category list or category definitions and things like that so that we can start tracking our engagement more effectively. Jorge, do you have a hand?
Yeah, I had a quick question. So for the spreadsheet, is Iman like making a whole new one and like, or
That's kind of pretty much what we've talked about. Because I think it's overwhelming.
Yeah, no, yeah, I
and
know.
very
That's
outdated.
yeah, no, that's what I was just wondering. I was just wondering if he's making a whole new one or if he's just like fixing that one up because I was just gonna suggest like just make a new one.
Yeah. Jorge, that's a great question, man. I have a new one that I've created, and I can definitely share that with you all. Where I have almost month to month of like, okay, this is who I contacted this month. This is who this organization is. Maybe a little bit about a background, a few sentences about what that interaction was like, if there's any follow-ups. And then I have it color coded depending on like what district this organization is at, so we can at least have a general consensus to at least see like what our engagement efforts are from month to month. So that's where we're at, and then I can work with you all on like cleaning up that specific one. But yeah, I'm definitely starting one from scratch, so then we can kind of figure out that and kind of use that one as like a list of a contact list for each of us to kind of use if we need that. But like what I was telling Leslie, you know, the CBO world, there's a lot of turnover, right? So I think it's really important to just to stay up to date with them and just, you know, for that constant communication. So yeah, so those are my 2 cents. But thanks, Jorge.
Yeah, I haven't seen what that looks like, Iman, so I think it would be good to share. That would be good.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, cool. So kind of this, but a much cleaner thing is what we're working towards, Vanessa. Does that kind of like, is that kind of what you were talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that one thing that's important is to just make sure that the classifications, whether it's subcategory or community or PCEP category, that all of those are multi-select. Because, you know, a lot of the community orgs are going to have an intersectionality that's really unique. So just making sure that the framework, the bones of it, can capture all of that.
I think we need to tighten up our like definitions and category options and things like that, because right now it's yeah, there could be a lot. So that's something that Iman, like, well, this committee will work on, and I think Iman will own ultimately as like the community engagement coordinator. In terms of additional deliverables, any additional ideas, or do we feel like that is a good place to start?
Well, we've been talking about it all meeting, but one of the deliverables needs to be some kind of synthesis, because the way that will work with policy and reform is, like, as we all know, we want our policy recommendations to be grounded in community concerns and input, right? So that will be the interplay between these two subcommittees. Is you all will hand off something to policy and reform, whatever form that takes, is up for you to determine. But that's going to be one of the big ones. Does that make sense to people, what I'm describing?
Due to me, I'm smiling because that was my first question I was going to think. But I'm 100% behind the thought of that. Yes, without me going into no more explanation.
And then for us, that we need to decide what that looks like. And, you know, does that look like a kind of mini recommendation, or like, does that look like an email? I guess, like, you know, what does that deliverable look like? My thought is that it would be presented, obviously, at the that it would be like part of our report, like in the full committee meeting. And then from there, as a full committee, we would decide what moves forward and what doesn't. And then also like steering committee wise, things like that. But yeah, I don't think it has to, like, in my opinion, I don't think it has to be over processed and like look like a recommendation from this committee to the subcommittee to make a recommendation. You know, like that, but you know, open to thoughts.
I see how I like the way Vanessa's data process of thinking is in that recommendation, showing as Dory used earlier, stop data for that. You know, there's a enough discussion around how that it was showing in community, whatever, that data that was created from out of all of the community engagement pieces that we were in shows a strong pattern that's consistent with what that is, in my thoughts. And the committee in itself is speaking directly to policy and reform in the capacity of where that they're able to take the lap at that point and move directly into conversation in the other part of the community. If that makes sense.
I'm not quite sure I understood.
Retrieving a report that has consistent pattern from what we've been hearing, to be able to track that through whatever, and I'm only going to use, let's say, racial profiling stops in the forums that we've been having in that community engaged area. If we have 2 events, 3 events, and we're seeing the same pattern of conversation, however that is what we retrieve out of, we show that there is enough out of all of those meetings that we've had, this being a strong consent of what we're seeing for, again, making a light recommendation to deal with whether it's that stop or engagement and pattern. And we have that as enough to be able to pass over because we see from each event how many times we saw that or heard that. And here is our thought out of community. What we see as engagement is something to take focus or notice to.
Pastor Reisner, let me put that in the frame of kind of PCCEP workflows as I see them. I think that's a really good example. So say the subcommittee did some engagement around stops and you do it in, let's say you do it in all 4 districts. I think when we're talking about the deliverable for this subcommittee, what we're talking about is how are you going to report what you heard?
Mhm.
How are you going to identify themes? How are you going to sort of separate it? Like, is it going to be by district? Is it going to be by theme? Whatever. And some of this, like, I don't think you need to really answer. It might just be case by case, depending on the topic. But once you do that, instead of like making conclusions about what should be done, my vision for the structure of the committee is that you would then hand that off. Well, full committee would say, yeah, we think this is important. It would be handed off to policy and reform to dive deeper into understanding potential policy intersections or practices or whatever they may be, and policy and reform will craft the recommendations.
And change.
I think where
Oh.
we can provide recommendation as a committee though is like what topics we hear most on, and like say like in that report say like we heard from these, you know, these like top 5, you know, we maybe recommend that we like address 3 or something like that. That could be a way that this committee also integrates with that work, but then the ultimate recommendation would come from policy and reform, and we could help with like facilitating additional community input opportunities.
For sure. Yeah, I think that's where the importance of your deliverables will come in, is like you guys will be the ones out there like hearing this stuff, and you know, you might be like, this really resonated, like this was really important.
Yeah.
We really want to highlight this thing. Yeah. Vanessa?
And oh, sorry.
So just thinking from a logistics component, so as far as data analysis and synthesization, whatever, putting it together, I'm wondering like what that looks like. Like, how do we know when we've reached data saturation on a certain topic? How do we combine topics to nest them into themes? What does that process look like? Who here is great at technical report writing? Just thinking like, where does that responsibility fall?
Support staff.
I mean, I think from the way that Kip, you're raising your hand, is that in response to what Vanessa just said?
Well, it could be to that as well, because I think that's kind of a little bit what I was going towards anyway. But what I was wanting to interject was that I think being overly prescriptive to how things bubble up into the larger discussion makes everybody's work more challenging. So if there's a trend coming from policy and reform from those meetings or from community engagement, in either case, they should inform each other and discuss also in full committee to figure out, do we have enough gravity for it to become maybe a working group that works on a recommendation, which is how we've done it in the past. It hasn't been so this has to be this committee, this has to be that committee. And to answer your question, Vanessa, I think from a data perspective, for the amount of input we had and all the different nuances to everything, it's really hard to formulize it, if that's a word. So it really comes down to what do we feel as a group we've been hearing, or like Pastor Wisner said, are we seeing trends in different aspects, and that kind of like moves things forward into this should be a recommendation. Like the PSR, the Portland Street Response recommendation came from all over the place. And I got into that. I had just joined PCCEP when that work was really getting started, but it was clear from day one that we were getting input from all over the community that this is critical. So I think there's a lot of nuance that we have to navigate to make sure it's legitimate. But when there's gravity, it feels really present.
Pastor Wisner, and we do need to move to wrapping up
Mhm.
this discussion. Just heads
Okay.
up.
I was just thinking through Vanessa's question, the experts on the how to. Um, a lot of that picking a subject of data is easy to obtain through what is already in what we get from the monitor's report, as well as from the thinking of where that we have the different parts of the Bureau's uh, reporting concept that's engaging with them to be able to extract more of that and being able to look at what we do to formalize that, to say that to the recommendation to the policy and procedure. That's how I think of that, through being able to have that access, and those who already have ballot and validation of it's not just something that's off the wall, but it's really something that we already have found, using that one piece as an example, and we can just template off of those things and be able to create.
Thanks, Pastor Reisner. I am going to move us into next steps. Liz does have a hard out at 8, so we want to respect that. So let's just briefly touch on action items. So I think really good discussions tonight. Certainly no decisions or consensus. So I do think a lot of this is pertinent. Maybe just like right now we could, and obviously we can communicate offline about this, but do you all have an instinct about what you would like the June subcommittee meeting to look like?
So the June subcommittee meeting is going to be June 17.
Yes.
I think that is about a month and, almost a month and a half. I think if we like put our heads down, could we like commit to maybe having the draft of the community engagement plan to review with community?
I think that would be a great goal.
And I don't personally, I don't think our community engagement strategic plan should be very long. So I think like it should be actionable, short, to the point, and then we can, kind of just use it as like our framework. So I would hope that we can get through it within that meeting.
Totally agree. Okay. Does that sound good to folks? A little more time to flesh out some of these things and put them on paper. And yeah, I do think the monthly meeting structure and the deliverables are two of the biggest pieces to this. So I have a little more time to think about that and digest. All right. I'm just going to speed us right through this. So let's go ahead and open it up to, you can skip that, to public comment if there are any community members here who would like to, go right ahead, Barbara.
Hi. Well, this has been interesting. All the work you've been doing and the direction you're going in it sounds pretty cool. Anyway, you already spoke to our concern about the agenda and everything, so we got it. So, but there is a concern. I went to the FitCog Town Hall at Jefferson High School, I don't know, a couple months ago, and they did mention that there were other people in the department that were important, like in terms of violence prevention. But when they did their data, I had the impression only the police really spoke. And it gave the impression that any reduction in violence had to do with what the police were doing rather than what other community groups were doing. And then I noticed when Councilor Smith put out a flyer for, I think it's next week, a town hall, and she invited the police, BOEC, and I think the fire department, but not Portland Street Response. And so I feel like they need to be brought up to the same level and being taken as seriously as the other bureaus or the other departments. I think that's really important if we're going to get anywhere, because they do a lot of work. They do it nonviolently, and then the police are not in the position of having to deal with people they don't feel comfortable dealing with. And also somebody who had been on a ride along mentioned, I don't remember who it was now, she saw the officer kind of get compassion fatigue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I think it's really important to promote Portland Street Response, and that they show up at these events and like be in the public eye, I guess. Thank you for listening, and thank you for your work.
Thank you, Barbara. Any other community members who have a public comment for us tonight? All right, Pastor Wisner, and if you could be brief.
I was going to ask Barbara on the follow-up of that. Were you at the state of affairs with that, Barbara? I'm not sure if I saw you there, but the areas of speaking about Portland Police Response was one of the topics that was coming in the public safety area to make sure that it is considered to be just as important in the areas of the budgets and moving forward.
Yeah, it was just these two, the FitCog town hall at Jefferson High School, and then the meeting next week that Councilor Smith is going to have. PSR is not listed. And so to me, that's a concern, and we should probably contact her, but I just think in general, it's really important to have them on, talk about them in the same way we talk about police and fire and BOEC.
I agree.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. So thank you. Yeah.
My public announcement is we will be having on May 15th, 16th, and the 15th, the Black Community Forum, Summit, rather. Our keynote will be CA Raymond Lee, who will address some of the issues that are dealing in areas of what we're hoping to be able to build on an agenda, as well as recommendations of how we see the community being served. The things that should be on hopefully everybody's topic of mind is the new transition from with the community safety division right now. There is an interim which is now handed to the city administrator, and public safety does not have a director anymore. We want to see what that community, what does the city is, how they see what we want to know is, where is the city at? What is the city's direction? Because he's only been in office for only a year. So it would be interesting to find out with that decision being made and looking forward to seeing what's happening coming forward, is where is that action being taken? And what we want to hear is, where are we moving forward to in the public safety?
You said that's May 15th?
May 15th is, yes, where we will have the forum at Portland Community College on Killingsworth.
Okay.
On Saturday at 9. We have 4 workshops that will be dealing with it, from public safety and community, the speakers that we have in public safety and criminal justice is Attorney Ernie Warren, possibly Miriam Modem from the District Attorney's Office. We have Judge Watkins, who will be dealing in that area there, as well as possibly Aliza Kaplan that will speak on that issue in public safety as well.
Great. Thank you, Pastor Weiser. All right. Any closing comments, Leslie, from our chair?
No, just thank you all for your time. We have a lot to figure out, so yeah, we'll be probably talking a lot offline.
Yep.
So thank you.
Totally. Thank you all. All right.
Night all.
Yeah.
Were we going to say something at the end, Dory? You were saying?
Oh, no, that's it. I mean, our next meeting is on May 27th.
You were saying after we'll have a comment out. Me and you were offline that for me.
Oh, if you need help with your technology access.
Exactly.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, just give me a call tomorrow.
Okay, give you a call tomorrow.
All right. All right. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time and your contributions. Good night.
Bye, everyone.
Recording stopped.
Great job, Leslie.